I'm Steve with Airguns of Arizona's Repair Department, and today we're looking at the Daystate air rifles. Today we'll be looking at the fill connector on the Daystate air rifles. We'll be looking at the inside piston which holds the O-ring, the one-way valve in this rifle. This O-ring at times will need to be replaced if the rifle is leaking from this port. I recommend using leather inserts to protect the bottle from getting scratched. The inserts are usually magnetized and will attach right to the vise. Go ahead and install. After taking the stock off the gun, we're going to go ahead and install. Before we can remove the male connector, we'll need to release the air pressure from the rifle if there's air pressure in the rifle. We'll go ahead and at this point release the air pressure that's in the gun. You can fire the gun if you'd like, but that would take a long time. I recommend breaking the seal on the gauge. 6.78 socket will fit right on the gauge, and then you'll go ahead and remove it. Rifle bleed down until empty. Whenever you crack the gauge to bleed the rifle, make sure that you don't turn more than 1 or 2 turns. Whenever you hear the air escaping from the gauge, stop, let it bleed out. If you go too far and you unscrew the gauge, there is still high pressure in the gun, and this can blow off and do damage. So make sure that whenever you hear air escaping from the gauge, stop, let it bleed down to 0, and then continue working on your rifle. If my rifle does not have a gauge, we can go ahead and break this piece, which is the connector, open. Don't unscrew it all the way, but we can break it. Whenever you hear air seeping from the connector, then you'll go ahead and stand back and wait until the air is bled off completely. After installing your rifle in the vise, making sure that it's secure, we're going to go ahead and remove the male connector along with, and most of the times, the extension comes out as well. So we'll go ahead and take our 5/8 socket, put in, remove. As follows. Many times this piece is in so tight that you can't just take it and hold it and remove. A lot of times what I'll have to do is take this piece, I will put this in the vise. You really don't want teeth because that will mar the steel. So I recommend, if you can, find something like these pieces here, which will, again, they'll go right on the vise. They're flat, they have no teeth, and so you can actually put in, it might leave a little mark, but it's not going to leave any teeth marks on the piece. And so we'll go ahead and we'll screw this on as follows, making sure that we're on the steel piece, and we are, and we'll tighten this up, and then we'll go ahead and break this piece off right here. Sometimes they come off easy, sometimes they come off hard. After removing the male connector from the extension, we will go ahead and take a tool, something that's small enough to go into the air hole, and remove the piston. This is the piston that has the O-ring that we'll be replacing. After we have the piston out of the male connector, we can lay the male connector aside. We can take the extension out of the vise. And what I find the easiest way to replace the O-ring is to go ahead and put the steel piston in the vise. It doesn't have to be tight, it just has to be snug. Take a tool, which is going to be a standard, like a dental pick, sharp point, where you can actually get in and remove this O-ring. We'll go ahead and remove this O-ring, which sometimes they come out very easy, especially if they're bad. Sometimes it takes a few tries. Here we go, we got a good bite. We can go ahead and pop that O-ring off now, like that. And now we have the O-ring off, and we're ready to install the new O-ring. When installing O-rings, I always inspect them before I install, just to make sure, even if they're new, there might be a piece of debris on the O-ring, or there could be a cut or a little speck that could cause leakage. So I want to make sure that you get in the right light and you inspect your O-ring. In this case, this looks good to go. After inspecting the O-ring, we'll take the tool that I've made. This tool will actually slide over the piston, and the O-ring will expand and snap onto the piston itself. There are those who can actually take this O-ring, which is our harder O-ring, and manually snap it into place. I find it hard to do, so I'm going to take the tool. The tool, like I said, will actually slide over the piston. I will take just a touch of silicone and put it on the tool. I'm doing this because the O-ring will then slide down over it and making it much easier to do. There you go. The O-ring is in place, and we're ready to install the piece back in the male connector. Take a look at it, make sure that it's not damaged in any way. Make sure that this piece, which is the connector, is clean. Take a Q-tip and I'll clean the inside, just making sure that there's no debris. And if you have some way, like an air source available, you can actually blow any kind of debris out. Looks good, we're ready to install the piston. Piston itself will slide in, and then once it's to this point, which will make the connector makes contact with the O-ring, you can go ahead and push that into place. After installing the piston in the connector, we want to make sure that the dowty seals are in good shape as well. The dowty seals are this steel piece with a rubber bushing inside. These are in good shape. These are brand new, and so we'll go ahead and install this piece together. This is your seal. The dowty seal is actually what makes contact with both sides and seals air pressure from leakage. The other side here, which is going to go back into the rifle, we'll look at the dowty seal, make sure that's good, and at this point we can go ahead and install back into our rifle. It's a matter of lining it up and screwing it back into place. I finger tightened this at this point. This needs to be wrench tight. So we'll go ahead and we'll take our 5/8 wrench and install and tighten. Doesn't need to be extremely tight. Needs to be tight, but don't gorilla tighten this piece. At this point, if you've loosened the gauge up to release the air pressure, you need to go ahead and tighten the gauge back up as well. Whenever you have these items all in place, you're ready to put air pressure back in your rifle. Daystate has a variety of ways that the male connectors are put into the cylinders. This is another featured Daystate. It's the MK4, and this screws right into the tank. There is no extension, and so what you'll need to do is, of course, take the stock off. You can put the cylinder again in the vise, and then proceed to remove the male connector from the cylinder. I recommend loosening up the barrel band screws, and then loosening up the connector, and then following the same procedures as we talked about earlier. Thank you for joining me on the removal and the installation of the O-ring that's on the male connector piston. If you'd like, take a look at some of our other repair videos. Until then, we'll see you soon.